Okay, fellas, welcome back to some more SBC Gaming news, and this is my second take, because that's how I roll. Anyways, my job situation changed for the better, so I'm gonna be pretty darn busy from now on for at least a couple of months, so sadly, that means that I won't be able to make content with the same schedule as before, so I'll be releasing maybe like one video a week. So just letting you guys know, I might be releasing one episode of the SBC Gaming News one week, and then after that, one guide, and I'll alternate between the two. But we'll see how it goes. Ideally, I still want to release one gaming episode and one guide per week, but that might be a little bit too much. Anyways, before we begin, I'd like to thank everyone for dropping by and watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm gonna have timestamps below for everything, so you can skip around to whatever interests you. I'm also gonna have all the sources linked in a pastebin file, so you can go look at the sources yourself to see where I get the news from. If it can fit in the 5,000 character limit of the YouTube description, I'll just paste it in there. But if it goes over it, then I'll put it in a pastebin file. It also gives you a little bit more wiggle space in terms of formatting the data how I want it to look like, and add some extra little tidbits in there as well. Okay, why don't we start with comments before we begin? Thank you for leaving comments, I really do appreciate it. We have this comment from JH on Lo-Fi. Anbernic is taking over the emulation SBC scene so much that most of this video is Anbernic related, lol. Still a great video. You know what, first of all, thank you for the comment, and secondly, yeah, you know what, Anbernic has this genius strategy of like copying handhelds that have hype, or that a lot of people like, and then just flooding the market with handhelds every month. Like, it seems like every month they have a new handheld. They just released the Cube, and then like a month later, we have the 40XXH coming out. One next, right? It's non-stop, and I think it's a great strategy in that if there's a new handheld every month, people will be more likely to review it. And so on YouTube, on Reddit, on social media, even amongst your friends who are into this hobby, they're more likely going to be talking about Anbernic handhelds than, let's say, a Miyoo, which releases very rarely, right? So it's a strategy and it seems to be working, but there's a lot of flaws with it in that, you don't really have a lot of time to support the hardware and the software properly, so you're relying on other people to make custom firmwares or custom operating systems for you, and they can't keep up with hardware changes. So thankfully they did something genius where they just use H700 chips for all of their handhelds pretty much. People might be tired of it, but the one great thing is that all the custom operating systems pretty much work on all these handhelds now with minor tweaking, because obviously not every single piece of hardware is the same, even if the chipset is the same. But yeah, it is what it is. Also, I kind of organized the news format that way. This week, I'll be focusing on Miyoo. So mostly the Miyoo A30 and how it has like a comeback phase going on right now. Anyway, Saito Stockman said, Anbernic supply line video was really interesting, and we had a long comment thread here. Thank you for leaving a comment, Saito. Appreciate it. But yeah, we're talking about like how, yeah, like I didn't really expect it to be that way. Like I imagined it in my head, but like once I saw it, it was, I don't know, it's surprising when you see it for yourself. And that's what Saito was mentioning. Also, he was saying like, oh, it explains why a lot of these consoles may have issues. Like there's a dude going ham with like an automatic screwdriver, and if they screw it out a little bit too tight, you're gonna get a light bleed. So, two A buttons, two B buttons, Honestly, the QC person at the end should catch that, but I don't know. Maybe they're letting it through. But yeah, he also thinks that there's going to be a 4x3 T8020 version coming very soon. So yeah, that was a good comment or thread on Reddit by a person. I didn't really think about it, but when they mentioned it, I was like, you know what? That makes sense. So I think the next console, or maybe the console after whatever's coming up next, will possibly be a 4x3 aspect ratio with a T820, and I think that'll be killer because you can play PS2 games and GameCube games in the aspect ratio that most people are familiar with. For those consoles, it's not too bad to have 16:9 because they do have widescreen hacks and it works okay for most games. Because most games that are just full 3D, it's easier to do widescreen hacks, or you format it to by 1:1 aspect ratio even for the cube. Another thing, so I released some videos on the MIUI Smart Pro and PSP performance, and I was pleasantly surprised by this handheld. It can run PSP fairly well for the most part. Now some games are going to struggle, but you can tweak it so that it runs at 2x native resolution and pretty much have almost zero frame dropping, but it's going to be impossible for a few games. But yeah, if you ask a question, I'll be more than happy to help, and I have this long comment thread with Setzer777 where we go over different settings together and just collaborate on how to make games run better. And that happened quite a few times where, you know, people will ask me a question, and honestly speaking, I don't know the answer because I'm not an expert. I may know of what other people are saying on Reddit, but I haven't tested it myself, nor do I understand fully why those solutions work. So yeah, I have to test it out for myself if I have the handheld, and I'll respond back to that person, and then they'll respond back with their findings, and this back and forth, this collaborative effort it feels great when you run into it. You don't really see it anymore. I mentioned this before, but like in video games, it's just super toxic, even though you need to be collaborative. You need to cooperate together to win, but everyone's just toxic. But yeah, I hope this scene doesn't turn into that. One other thing, there is a standalone N64 emulator, so AppPryTunes asks for that, and there's a dude who made it. Rob Retro Linux on Reddit released a standalone Mupen64 emulator, and it seems to work better than the RetroArch core included on a MIUI Smart Pro. So if you're trying to play N64 and games aren't working, you can try checking that out. I'll link the Reddit thread in the comment and the description as well. Okay, now before we begin, I like to cover things that are funny or news items that are interesting or of note that doesn't really fit into the categories I have. You know, I have new hardware, fire advice, bugs, fixes, and updates, and then user creations, and then sometimes a channel spotlight or a highlight. Anyways, this was posted by Lagmonster in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post title is Fluff. Now that's a nice DS. And it's two CRTs stacked on top of each other, hooked up to a Nintendo DS. I don't know how they did it. But this looks great, but also frightening, because I know how heavy CRTs are. I used to have a couple, and I'm actually really sad that I recycled them, because when I moved, we pretty much gave everything away. And I had a really nice Gold Star CRT that was super old. It was older than most kids out there. Okay. It was a pretty old CRT, but it was super nice. And yeah, we recycled that, and I'm very sad about that. But yeah, CRTs are kind of unbeatable for that nostalgia feeling. And there's kind of a scene where people are using flat screen CRTs to play modern games. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that's worth it. Anyways, the source is from The Verge. It was from an article posted by Sean Hollister, and that person took a tweet from Maruhi Game, which is apparently a content creator. They have a YouTube channel, and they nicknamed it the DS Heavy. That's kind of funny. Alright, moving on, we have this post from Demeech1907 in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled "The Current State of Retro Handhelds." It's the meme. They blink and then, oh, Anbernic makes a new handheld, but someone takes it even further. If you take a look at Waka Waka's post here, my goodness, this is... It's so funny, but it's true. And they're gonna have to update the meme, because Anbernic released news about the 40XXH, which is coming out very soon. So, I think it's very funny, but yeah, Anbernic has been flooding the market. Alright, here's another news item that I think is kind of sad. It was posted a while ago, but I think it's still relevant. This was posted by player1_gamer in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled, "Vimm's Lair was forced to take down a ton of stuff." Now they claim this was likely because a big TikTok video was made about this site, but I'm not entirely sure if that's true because there's no evidence of that, but it may be true. Anyways, if you don't know, Vimm's Lair was a site that had ROMs, and people use that site. It was like kind of the go-to. Now, legally speaking, you can't talk about ROM sites. You're not supposed to link it. You're not supposed to talk about how to get it. And the reason why most of these subreddits have that rule is if you talk about it, they may get sued or issued a DMCA takedown or something similar to that. That's why it's kind of a no-no to ask where you get ROMs. You just have to go look it up yourself. But people, if they broke the rule, they would mention Vimm's Lair. So that used to be the case, but now I guess a lot of the ROMs are gone. In my opinion, you know, like it's obviously illegal in a lot of countries, so it's to be expected. But it is a little bit sad from the perspective of preservation, where a lot of these games, you know, they're getting old, and people don't take care of them, and they may be a lost to time. And another thing is, a lot of people nowadays don't care about the older games. A lot of the people on the subreddits are around my age range. The majority of them on the subreddits are anywhere from like 30-ish years old to about 40 plus. And so we grew up with these games and they mean a lot to us. And to see them kind of disappear to time would be very sad. A lot of kids nowadays don't know about these games and they don't care about them, except for people in countries where the games weren't officially released. And so they had to be imported and they were massively expensive. So there's a huge piracy scene in those countries. And those kids, even kids nowadays growing up right now, will play games like this. Whereas in countries where the games were officially released, I noticed that the youngins don't really have an attachment to these games. Now, if they give them a shot, they will end up liking them because these games still hold. I think they still hold up. I think they still pass the test of time and that they're well designed. It's kind of hard to give, you know, especially the older ones a chance because there's some underdeveloped game mechanics. It looks a little rough. You know, there's a little bit of a learning curve. But once you start playing them, I think, you know, you'll see why a lot of people have fond memories of these games. Okay, here's a PSA. This was posted by Responsible River44 in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled, "Heads up, Powkiddy.com is possibly insecure." So they use a one-time debit card via privacy.com. And essentially what that is, it's a fake credit card or debit card, and you can only use it one time. Now, you can set it so that you have a virtual credit card that can only be used at one vendor if you want to do that. But anyways, they got a charge on it at Riot. And so what this means is it's very likely that the credit card or debit card number was leaked or stolen from Powkiddy's website, because this was a one-time debit card used only on Powkiddy. So what this means is, if you buy anything at Powkiddy, you should be very careful and be very observant over your credit card statements, because this was purchased in August 2023, and then it was charged today, so like a year later. You gotta watch out. So that's why I always recommend, if you go buy these devices, just because it's the manufacturer's website doesn't mean it's safer. I would recommend using PayPal, and Powkiddy's website does not accept PayPal. So in that case, I'll recommend using a virtual card. And you have to be very careful. Someone used a virtual credit card number with Apple Pay, and they changed the number, but then they still kept charging the account because there's some sort of feature where if your credit card expires or is changed, merchants can still charge that account using the old number so that bills aren't interrupted. That's a massive security flaw right there, but you gotta be careful, fellas. You gotta get something where you can cancel that card and nothing can be charged to it. So a privacy card would work. Just be aware that you have to give them your information when you sign up. Also, PayPal is my go-to. But yeah, just be careful, folks. I'm saying this because I've seen people direct people to Powkiddy's website because the V10 just released and that was the only place to get it. I believe it's on AliExpress now, so you should wait for a sale on AliExpress if you want the handheld. But yeah, just be careful, man. Retroid's website, pretty much any. I haven't seen a post about Anbernic's website, but I would bet Anbernic's website is also insecure. So just watch out, fellas. Okay, now we're moving on to new hardware, and this is kind of old, but before I talked about a rumor about Microsoft releasing a possible handheld console, and this is because there were handheld PCs before, but the Steam Deck made it massively popular, and it kind of showed why you would want one, because you can lock people into your ecosystem and generate profit over subscriptions or game sales. So let's just watch the video. It's from IGN, and the video is titled Phil Spencer Practically Confirms an Xbox Handheld, IGN Live 2024.
Whether it's on PC, whether it's through
So
the
we
cloud.
should have a handheld.
I think so.
I think we should have a handheld.
Do you want to
too.
say anything?
So Phil Spencer himself says, I think we should have a handheld. Now, he's not confirming nor denying. But in my opinion, I think it's highly likely Microsoft is going to release a handheld, because if you look at their current business model, they have been pushing Microsoft Game Pass. Now, I know Microsoft Game Pass is very beloved by a lot of people. It's a great value to the consumer, and I recognize that. For a relatively cheap monthly fee or a yearly fee, you can get access to a large library of pretty much recent titles, as well as older ones. Now, for me, I hate Microsoft Game Pass, and let me explain why. Basically, it erodes ownership of games. You don't own the game, and you never will. And if you don't own the game, that means they can take away access. So they can rotate games out of the library, and you can't play them anymore. And so you lose access and ownership. And when they control access, you don't really have ownership anymore. And I've seen a lot of comments saying if buying isn't owning, then pirating isn't stealing. I don't think that's the answer, but you know what? If we live in a future where we can't own our products, we might have to revert to piracy. Blu-rays and DVDs are also going the way of the dodo, in that companies don't want to publish physical media where we can own or control access to that media. They want everything to be streamed online because they can charge us some subscription fee, and then they can control access. So this has happened where people have bought, I think it was anime on Funimation. So then what happened was all the titles that you bought on Funimation, you had to rebuy on Crunchyroll. There was I think there was I don't know if you will call it a scandal, but yeah, there's a hoopla over that online. But you know what? People just suck it up and pay for it anyways. Even though there's like a vocal minority complaining, people still pay the money, and that's why these businesses will continue to screw us over. Okay? But yeah, for me, I know people like Game Pass, that's fine. If you like it, keep using it. But for me, I will never want to subscribe to Game Pass, because after I thought about it, I was like, wow, we really won't own anything. Like the Ubisoft guy said, we need gamers to get used to not owning their games, and was talking about players, getting them to subscribe to their Uplay service. And I was like, not something I'm interested in. Okay, moving on, we have this GameMT E6 Plus first look from Retro Gaming with Deadfred. And the reason why I linked it is I think there is some interest in this handheld, and there were not a lot of people covering it. So if you want to watch a review, oh, there's one right here too, Mad Little Pixel. But yeah, the downside is the price. So when you log into the website, it's probably gonna be around $75. I believe this is the GameMT store, the official one. And yeah, it's gonna be expensive. So in my opinion, for the build quality and what you get, that is too expensive. Maybe if it was like $50, I would consider it, because the RK3566 is a decent chipset, and you have Android and a touchscreen available. But yeah, for that price, you can get, better handhelds or better ones that are cheaper. So for me, the price is the major downside. But yeah, one quick thing. So if you are gonna buy an AliExpress, I go over this every single time because I want people to be safe. When you make an account, never use your real email. Make a separate new email just for AliExpress. Never use your credit card. Always use PayPal or a privacy card or a virtual credit card of some sort. Don't put your phone number in there. Use a Google Voice phone number. I know you gotta give Google your phone number for that. If you don't want to do that, use any sort of voice over IP service that provides you with a phone number. And if possible, this one is hard to do, but if possible, don't put your address in there. I would ship it to a PO box, or if your workplace is fine accepting packages where you ship it to your workplace. The reason being is these sites are very insecure, and it's not just AliExpress. I recommend these tactics as much as possible for even sites like Amazon. You just gotta protect yourself. There was a huge credit card breach for Target. So if you shop at Target with a credit card, at the brick and mortar store, you got your credit card number stolen. This was a couple years back. Yeah, it's kind of hard, but you know, it's a headache if you get anything stolen. So just giving you guys a heads up. I see a lot of content creators kind of pushing these sites without telling people how to shop safely. So I try my best to let you guys know that you should take these steps when shopping on any of these sites. One other thing, so one quick way to check if a store is legit or not, you can hover over the store name and see when they were open. If they were open that month and they have a bunch of numbers in their name, I would avoid them. They might be legit, but most likely it's going to be a scam store. And you can usually see ratings here for shipping and all that. Make sure it's all green. You can take a look and see how many consoles were sold, how many reviews there are, and check the reviews. If it's too few and the price is too good to be true, I'll be very wary. Okay, moving on, we have a review of the 40XXH from Retro Game Core. The video is titled Anbernic RG40XXH Big Screen. So we already know that it has an H700 chipset. It has a very similar body to the RG Cube. And so the only thing I'm interested in is how does the screen look? And the screen looks pretty okay. Now, for these devices, there's a screen lottery because they just buy a big bin of screens and they just put it in the device. You don't know if you're getting a good screen or not. But so far, it seems to be pretty good. I like the size of it, and it seems to be pretty okay in terms of the display quality. So we don't no light bleeding for now. But yeah, that looks pretty good. The reason why I mentioned this is, you know, for people getting older, your eyesight gets a little bit worse. So 3.5 inches may not cut it anymore. Gets a little bit uncomfortable to view. It might be cataracts, just might be your vision getting worse. So 4 inches sounds a lot better than the 3.5 inch. It makes a pretty big difference because it's measured diagonally, so the dimensions of the screen is quite larger. Again, going back to that one Reddit post and Zino Stockman's comment, I do hope we see a 4:3 aspect ratio that is 4 inches or larger with a T820 so that we could play some PS2 and GameCube games. I think that would be fantastic. Alright, moving on, we have this Powkiddy V10 review from Taki Udon. The video is titled A $40 Hidden Gem Powkiddy V10 Review. So, for the most part, he was very positive about it. Seems like the build quality is actually pretty good, and that's that's a surprise for a Powkiddy product. And I know a lot of people like him, but Powkiddy is the company where their QC QA process is just a little bit worse than Anbernic, so you may get a product that's a potato. But here, there's a few flaws. For starters, there's no volume plus minus button. The battery is oddly smaller than the compartment size, so if you know the voltage, then we can potentially get a larger battery and give it more life. But the battery life on this is fairly decent. And also, one other bad thing is that battery is placed right above the processor and the RAM, I believe, so that is a direct source of heat. So that may warm it up a little bit. But yeah, for the most part, Taki seemed to like it, and a lot of people seem to be enjoying it. I really do want this because of the 3:2 aspect ratio screen to play Game Boy Advance games on, but I kind of want it in a horizontal form factor, and Powkiddy may release one. So they have two unannounced handhelds. They have the vertical, the horizontal format. We don't know if it's the same screen. They have a Helio G99 chipset handheld that's supposed to be more premium. And I saw recently on the spreadsheet that there's a Powkiddy 20S Pro or something. Let's pull it up. Pull it up, Jamie. So this, I didn't see anyone talking about, sorry, Powkiddy RGB20 Pro. And for some odd reason, this is a fad. It's going to have a very high resolution display. So if we take a look here, it's going to be the same as an XUHD 3.2 inch screen, but the resolution is going to be 1024 by 768. And that is kind of interesting. I would rather have a larger screen that's higher resolution. But one of the benefits of having a high resolution screen is that when you scale it up that much, if the processor can handle it, you don't have to worry about the pixels being off, because the more times you scale it up, the higher the resolution, the less you're able to distinguish each individual pixel. So you can't really tell if it's off or not if it's like super tiny. Whereas, as Jack mentioned before with the Nintendo DSi, you can see the pixels, okay? Okay, going along with this, there was a post that was deleted talking about a new Datafrog console. If someone deletes the post, I'll try my best to not show it because I'll respect their wishes to have it deleted. Just as a note here, if you use Reddit, the reason why I don't use it, one of the main reasons, is Reddit doesn't delete anything. They just remove access to it, but if you have the URL, you can access that post. So the post contents may be gone, but it's probably just hidden. I don't think they delete anything. So that's why a lot of people use this tool where they will change their comment or their post to some random gibberish, and that's in effect deleting what they wrote. I'm not entirely sure if Reddit stores the different versions of your posts and stuff. I don't know if they go that far. But yeah, Discord does the same thing, which is why I don't want to use Discord at all either. Anyways, the Datafrog Q9 was apparently a clone of the Anbernic or Revo K101 Plus, and this is shown on Panda Mimi's YouTube channel. The video is titled GBA can be linked up with the Revo K101 Plus, multiplayer is supportive. Now, this one can play Game Boy Advance cartridges and support the link cable, whereas the Datafrog version, the clone of that, it cannot play Game Boy Advance cartridges, and I don't believe it supports the link cable. But one cool thing is, this device comes with like a flash card. For that handheld, you put in the SD card in like a Game Boy Advance cartridge, and then you can play games off of that. So apparently it's an old console, and it's gonna cost roughly $25-ish to $30-ish dollars, and it can't play cartridges again. So I'm not sure if that's worth it. The K101 Plus is still roughly around $60, $70, but when it's on sale, you might be able to get it for $50. So yeah, I'm just looking for a Game Boy Advance replacement, you know? I want to mod my own, but it's going to be super expensive if you try to look for a board that's in good condition, and then you get the IPS screen with a new shell, and then you get a flash card, then you have to get a micro SD card, then you have to get rechargeable batteries. I'm going to use rechargeable batteries because the USB-C rechargeable ones are very expensive, and they last as long as, you know, Eneloops or a lot of batteries, so, you know, I don't see the point in getting it. Anyways, just I thought I would bring that up because people might be thinking, oh, a new Datafrog console should be better. It's actually like 7 to 11-ish years old, so just giving you guys a heads up, it might not be that good anymore. And for around the $30 price range, you can buy a Miyoo A30, so that probably be better for you guys. Alright, there was another deleted post, but this was a link from the General 154, and the post was about Game Boy Advance Game Recommendations, and it was sourcing this website. So the website is vsrecommendedgames.fandom.com. It's from the wiki for Game Boy Advance. And there's a nice list here, and let me just tell you guys, the reason why I love Game Boy Advance, the more I think about it, is that it has really good games, and it's portable. It's made to be played on the go or in short bursts. Or you can play in long sessions if you want, but there's so many good recommendations here. So if you guys got a handheld, and you're like, what games do I play? And you're interested in Game Boy Advance, check this link out, because there are so many games in different genres that at least one of them will interest you. And they were made in a kind of like the golden era of video games where, you know, like game design is pretty much solidified. So when you play these games, you might recognize some of the game design elements even being used nowadays. But I feel like game design has gotten worse. That's a different topic, but yeah. So many different genres. You know, all the classics like the Zeldas, the Pokemans, Castlevanias. There's just so many. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is on here. Oh, Boktai is super interesting in that when the game first came out, it had like a cartridge that could sense the light. So you had to play during the daytime and during the nighttime for different things. For emulation, thankfully, there's a switch so you can change it in the game and you don't have to go out and see the sun. Because, that would be dangerous. Okay. Alright, now we're moving on to buyer advice. And I referenced this post before, but I found it, so now I can show you guys. This post is posted by Retro Cousins in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The title is Miyoo Rumors Thread June-July 2024. And I was referencing this in terms of a new V5 Miyoo Mini in the works. And so this was posted by iReddit AR Tor. Apparently there's a new V5 Miyoo Mini in the works to be released soon, whatever that means. I have a guy in China who made a small batch of metal Miyoo Mini shells and he was telling me about it. So this is interesting. I don't know if this means like a refresh or slight modifications to the V4 version and they're going to release it as the V4, or an entirely new SKU where it's going to be the V5. So I don't know what would be different though, because the V4 had the higher resolution screen. It was terrible at first until they updated the firmware, and now it looks really good. So I don't know what they're going to do for a V5. I can't imagine like what they could improve or change other than make it more durable. But yeah, so the reason why I brought this up is I know there are some people looking for a V4 or any version of the OG Miyoo Mini. So if you're trying to look for one, I would recommend waiting a little bit more to see what this V5 is like. It might just be a refresh of the V4, but we don't know. Also, another mention here, if you want to know where it's sold, there are resellers, but the official Miyoo site is the AliExpress web store. They don't have any other web store. It's on AliExpress. I mentioned this because I saw a few people, they just Google and then they go click on the first link and it's usually a scam web store. So be very careful. If it's like the official Miyoo Mini web store and that's the URL, and there's a couple URLs with just official and Miyoo Mini in there, it's not real. The actual official Miyoo web store is on AliExpress. It's going to be like the official Miyoo store or something on AliExpress. Okay, here are some interesting posts. The first one is from I am Peter Siroki in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled Miyoo Mini's Clone CPU Performance Showdown Miyoo Mini Plus RG35XX and RG35XXH. So if we take a look here, they ran some benchmarks and Miyoo Mini Plus is the slowest, whereas the H is the fastest. Obviously, one interesting thing to note here, and this is something people mention every once in a while but not well known, the original RG35XX has a GPU, and if you use custom firmware or custom operating system that uses a GPU, it'll perform better in some games. As we can see here, when compared to Garlic OS, Battlezero Lite will unlock that GPU. The reason why I bring this up is take benchmarks with a grain of salt. What really matters is the actual game performance or how it feels when you're playing those games on the actual physical hardware. These numbers are kind of meaningless because I have a Miyoo Mini Plus right here and I love this thing. This runs games pretty darn fine. PS1 with enhanced 3D works fine. DS games work pretty okay. It's solid. You gotta overclock it a little bit for some games. But yeah, if I looked at those benchmarks, I would have thought that the Miyoo Mini Plus sucked compared to the RG35XX, but that's not the case. So theoretical numbers or theoretical performance versus actual performance is quite different because it varies on multiple things like the drivers, which Linux kernel you're running, the actual emulator support or how well it's compiled for that system, that kernel. Like there's so many things to take into consideration that these numbers are kind of meaningless, but they can be used as a general indicator of how good the hardware is going to be. But it's not going to actually reflect the performance of the games until we get, a solid operating system with up-to-date emulators. And then we'll find out that it can do stuff that we probably thought it couldn't do before, like the Miyoo Mini Plus playing Nintendo DS games. If you look at old threads, people will be like, nah, Miyoo Mini Plus can't play DS. It's physically impossible. And now we have it running DS games pretty okay. Here's another one from I am Peter Siroki. This was posted in the Miyoo Mini subreddit, and the title is Miyoo A30 CPU Performance. And as you can see here, the A30 is supposed to be twice as fast as the Miyoo Mini Plus. I'm not entirely sure if that is true because for some reason the A30 seems to be a little bit subpar in terms of performance, but I think Spruce does fix it up because you can pick different cores and set the CPU clock for it. So yeah, again, take these numbers with a grain of salt, but I'm grateful that someone actually showed these benchmarks to show, you know, theoretical performance, but what it boils down to it is how does it actually run the games. So as buyer advice, don't put too much weight into the specs, don't put too much weight into benchmarks, wait for like actual game performance and then use that to make your purchasing decisions. So there was, I gotta go back here. So there was a post from one player Insert Coin, who is the dude who makes the really nice filter, shader, and overlay packages for all the handhelds. And this guy was quoting this article here, and this was posted by Turo1975 in the RG35XX subreddit. The post is titled My MinUI New Release 2024-06-27B. And there's a quote here. Let me just read it for you guys. Another aspect is related to the battery. Garlic OS, Stock OS, all MinUI and Onion OS are working on a single CPU core. GPU and other unused cores are switched off, saving battery juice. Activating the GPU and running complex cores requires everything powered up. This simply means that there is no optimization to make boot time or battery life comparable to quote-unquote basic firmwares. So this is something interesting where I've seen this mentioned, and again, I don't have any way to prove this because I don't have the know-how or the skill set to do so, but I've seen this general statement show up, and it seems to be true in that like Nully has a longer boot up time, and it might be because it's powering up the GPU and the other CPU cores, and that's why the battery life on Nully might also be a little bit worse than the other custom operating systems where it doesn't do that. So we'll have to wait and see. The question that I have is, does turning on a GPU and running more cores actually improve game performance for the systems that it can run? So like, I feel like most of these systems don't require a lot of power, which is why they just run everything on one core. But what about the ones where it's a little bit harder to run for most of these handhelds like N64, Dreamcast? Like, does that make it a lot more playable if they do that? And I'm not sure. I want someone to do testing because I'm not sure if I have the know-how to do that. But you know, I might do that in the future where I just download a OS where it turns on the GPU and cores and then run games on it, and then try an OS on the same hardware that doesn't have GPU or multi-core support and see if it makes a difference on the higher end systems. But yeah, you would have to know if it's because of the hardware and not because of the software limitations. So that's where I kind of lack the know-how to make sure that my test is accurate, but that's something interesting to me. Okay, moving on, we have this post from Mon in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled My A30 Passes the Contra Test, and this is going to be a series of posts that show off why the A30 is better now. It has like a comeback phase right now where people are loving the handheld. It doesn't mean it's perfect, and I'm going to go over the flaws later. But for now, I've seen this sentiment expressed where the Dpad feels better, and I'm not entirely sure if this is because it's a lottery and they just got better Dpad because they're lucky, or if they made hardware revisions. I saw someone else referencing this exact post. They might have been, because this is the only post that I saw. But people are saying that there may be slight hardware changes to make it feel a little bit better. There's no way to confirm this, because it could just be a lottery. It could also just be their feeling. Like, the D-pad could feel terrible, but you hand it to someone else and they'll be like, oh, this is really good. There's too many factors here at play, so I can't confirm this, but this is something to keep in the back of your mind that there may be some slight hardware changes. Moving on, we have custom OS as well. So this was posted by 10 levels in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled Spruce, Trim Stock OS for Miyoo A30. Enjoy. Link and info in the comment. So 10 levels is a guy who's pretty active in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. I think he may be a mod there now. And him combined with a few other people made a modified stock OS for the A30, and people seem to be loving it. So I believe Retro Game Core covered it, and Joey's Retro Handheld as well. But I've seen the sentiment that a lot of people like this custom operating system. And so if you take a look here, this is the GitHub, it's 10 level Spruce, you can download it here. They're making a lot of changes and adding a lot of features. If you want a feature, you can actually just message them on the subreddits and they'll respond to you. So they'll add it. One person wanted the feature of pressing the power button to create a save state and then shut down and then resume that save state when you start it up. And they may be trying to add that feature next. So yeah, it's only getting better. So let's say, hey, what are some features that make Spruce very handy? This is a recent update. This was posted by 10 levels in the SBC Gaming subreddit. Spruce version 1.3 system options menu, select your core and set CPU from game list. So this is a very handy feature because one of the things people want to do is play on different cores. The reason why is certain cores may get better performance or it may have some features that you want. For example, GPSP has the Game Boy wireless adapter built into it, so that you can trade Pokemon for Game Boy Advance games wirelessly if they support the GBA wireless adapter. Also, changing the CPU speed is kind of important because certain games will just run terribly unless you up the CPU clock speed, and for some reason the stock OS, at least when it first came out, kind of underclocked it to the point where things just ran terribly. So I don't know why they did that, but yeah, because of that, a lot of people thought the handheld was not good, and that's where a lot of the negative sentiment came from. But apparently now, you can modify yourself and get a lot better performance. Okay, let's say you didn't want to use Spruce. Guess what? MinUI adds initial support for the Miyoo A30. This was posted by The Guru Drinks Bourbon in the Miyoo Mini subreddit, and it's thanks to Sean Inman. So this guy is the maintainer for MinUI, and a lot of people really like this custom operating system. So the way that it works is, it's very minimalistic, and you can transfer the SD card to all the handhelds that is supported, and it'll run on those handhelds. So once you go through the installation procedures on each handheld, that one SD card can be used on different handhelds. So for the two micro SD card ones, I believe you leave it in TF2. But yeah, so that's a really great feature. And also this is perfect for young kids, you know, the elderly, people who just want a minimalistic experience. You can lock it down even further so that they can't mess up the settings. It's a really great OS if you want to stay focused on playing games, and it has enough features to make it to the point where you can tweak it to what you want, but it doesn't overwhelm you with all the options. Okay, let's say you don't want MinUI or Spruce. There's other options as well, and you can look at this post by Yo Power Time. New Miyoo A30 software options see comment, and it was posted in the SBC Gaming subreddit. We pretty much have RA30 and BTN. So RA30 is developed by Jim Gray Git, and you can check out their GitHub page. The last release was a month ago, so I don't know if it's being actively developed. And then we have BTN, which stands for Better Than Nothing. That's kind of funny. But yeah, they're actively making changes to it. I believe the last release was about 2 weeks ago. And this is from the R Paradise team, which also made Koriki for the Miyoo Mini. So if you're wondering why am I focusing on all these custom operating systems, it's because of this poll. A lot of people were interested in the A30, but they don't like stock OS. Now, I'm in the rare camp where I don't mind stock OS. Miyoo stock OS, Anbernic stock OS, all okay. They're usable to me. But if you take a look at this post by Retro Peasants in the Miyoo Mini subreddit, the post is titled A30 Interest Poll Results Mixed. And we can take a look here. Out of the 158 people who voted, 51 had no interest until good custom software options appeared. This was roughly 3 weeks ago, and Spruce came out, and since then, people have been showing interest. So I think this poll is sort of accurate in that at least the hobbyists who are on the subreddits, they want a good custom OS, and Spruce seems to be good enough to kind of convince the people who are on the fence to get an A30. Now, outside of these subreddits, the people who just buy on from TikTok, you know, whatever source they buy it from, they probably don't know about these custom operating systems or care, and they're probably happy with the device as is. This is pretty much relegated to the realm of the ultra hobbyists, the people who stay up to date on, you know, everything that's happening in the scene. Okay, so for the whole reason why I covered the A30, there's a lot of posts like this. This one's from Nate Cubed in the SBC Gaming subreddit. This was only 2 days ago, and I saw another post just today. But the post is titled "Surprised by Miyoo A30," and they're talking about how much they like it. So I think it has yeah, there's a turnaround here. There's a comeback where when it first came out, people are like, I'm gonna pass. And then now people are like, once they tried it, it's actually pretty okay. I hope they continue this trend where they don't release a lot of different models. I really hope they don't. I hope they release a few and they just keep making the hardware better and then give time and support to the people making these custom operating systems to make it even better, because the Miyoo Mini Plus and the Miyoo Mini, they're getting old, but people still love these devices, and it's because of the longevity where the custom operating system people, especially Onion OS, can come in and just make the hardware experience better through software. And that's something I want to see. But yeah, now the reason I mentioned this is, you know, if you are thinking about the A30, now might be an okay time to get one. My personal recommendation is to wait a little bit longer for more potential hardware revisions before making a purchase. So the reason why I say that is, let's talk about the flaws. It's not all good things. There's some flaws that can't be fixed. So if we take a look here by Sam Squanch Poop, it's a swear word, I didn't say it. Let's post in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The title is Miyoo Mini A30 battery life. So this guy was talking about like, hey man, I like it, but it's kind of short in terms of the battery life. Can I extend it a bit more? So people recommended maybe try setting it to a lower clock speed. I'm not entirely sure if that will reduce battery usage. But yeah, that's one of the flaws, is that the battery life isn't as long as you want it to be. And I'm not entirely sure how this problem can be fixed, because the battery size is kind of set because of the size of the device is so small. So I'm not entirely sure you can get better battery life through hardware revisions, but we'll see. Here is another problem. This one I saw posted before as well. I'll try to find that other post for another episode because it shows a graph. But this was posted by Critical Meat 7048 in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. Miyoo A30 no sound with USB headphones. So the reason why it doesn't work, and there's actually a graphic there, but if you take a look at a regular headphone jack with a microphone or inline volume control, you can see there's 3 lines, right? These don't seem to work with the USB-C adapter, unfortunately. So I'm not sure why. I think that one post that I saw had someone go into details as to why it doesn't work, and there's a fix for it. But just be aware, if you wanted to use wired headphones and you have, you know, a microphone built into it or inline volume control, it may not work. So you want to use a headphone with 2 lines on it on the jack instead of 3. That one should be able to be fixed in a hardware revision. So that's why I'm recommending, you know, if you really wanted the handheld, if you wait a little bit, it might get even better. Here's another issue, and I believe this can also be fixed in a hardware revision, but this was posted by the Jeep that goes boom in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled PSA A30 Hall Stick Swap Issue Found. So he is referencing a video from the channel John Triger, and the video title is Miyoo A30 Analog Stick Upgrade Don't Do It. So this guy was talking about how he was trying to install the, you know, Hall effect sticks, like the Gulikit sticks, and it seemed to short and almost caught on fire. But yeah, so be very careful. And there's some comments here. I didn't notice, but apparently the Gulikit sticks operate at a lower amperage, 160 microamps versus 390 for like the traditional ALP style. So they're thinking like, hey, is it like being overcurrented? But it's probably more like a short. So I'm not entirely sure how that's possible. I don't know if it's the fault of the stick. I don't know if it's the fault of the hardware. But this is why you should be careful, because manufacturers cut a lot of corners in these devices. And if you look at the Anbernic video, you know, it's assembled by hand, and the people assembling it might not know what they're doing, you know, in terms of like what the hardware actually does and proper hardware design. So if you have an A30, don't upgrade the stick. Just swap out to another Switch style stick. Don't install Hall effect sticks. If you do, pay very close attention to it so you make sure that it doesn't catch on fire. Talking about stuff catching on fire, there's been a recent, I don't know what you call it, scare, maybe concern about the SP catching on fire, and I'm going to go over that in next week's episode. There was one troubling post where they were using a low voltage and low amperage way to charge it, and it still almost overheated to the point of catching on fire. The general piece of advice is, whatever the manufacturer tells you is the ideal voltage, use the charging brick that only outputs that voltage, no higher. So most handhelds use 5 volts, 1.5 amps. You gotta get an old brick that only outputs 5 volts and 1.5 amps. If anyone tells you that quick charge or power delivery charging bricks are okay, they are lying and they don't know what they're talking about, because there have been some cases where, actually a lot of cases, even years back, I found a post, and I'll try to find it for next week's episode, where someone used a power delivery charger in the Miyoo Mini Plus and almost set it on fire. So yeah, you know, the bricks are designed correctly, but the handhelds are not. So in that case, you can deliver a higher voltage. And a lot of people don't understand how this works too, because I've seen people say it's the voltage that kills, not the amperage. That is incorrect. It's because a higher voltage induces a higher amperage. They're related. Oh, I've seen also people say it's physics, and then they never describe what they mean by its quote-unquote physics as to why these charging bricks work correctly. No one wrote a single equation. I'll give you one. It's Ohm's law, V equals IR. I covered this in a previous episode. When the voltage goes up and the resistance stays the same, the current goes up as well. They're directly proportional. The one goes up, the other goes up. And it's because voltage is a difference in electrical potential. So a greater difference induces a greater flow of electrons. That's physics, okay, fellas? I don't want to hear this nonsense. I don't know where people come up with this misinformation, man. Like, what the heck? There's only one way to be sure that your charger is safe, and that is to get a device that reads the voltage and the current, and you make sure that it's only outputting what the device can handle, and just keep that reader on there, because there have been cases where a charging brick was working properly and then later it stopped working. So the risk is your device catches on fire and then sets your house on fire. So in my opinion, having the inconvenience of having to use a 5 volt 1.5 amp charging brick is worth not burning your house down. Like, these guys who are saying it's completely safe have missed all the posts where people are like, no, it's not safe, it bricked my handheld, it almost caught it on fire. Like, they're doing a massive disservice, because even if one person lost their house because of a fire, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable, and it's because you told that person that it was okay. That is not acceptable at all. Okay, anyways, going on to this last piece of advice. If you want some way to protect your handheld and you want something cheap and simple, just put a sock in it. Or more like, put it in a sock. This was posted by a Solid Goal in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. Inexpensive and cute protector. Baby sock from the dollar store. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people use socks. This is a great way to protect your device. So for the SP, the silver version has paint that you can easily scratch off. You probably want a sock for it at the very least. So cases add a lot of bulk, whereas the socks don't add a lot. They're cheap. You can replace them. They can give you some drip right there. Take a look at the sock. And they protect your device, at least from scratches. So even a GKD Pixel, the paint scratches off of the metal body very easily. You may want to put it in a baby sock of some sort. Okay, moving on. We have bugs, fixes, and updates, and the first one is a guide on how to get RTC working on the Miyoo Mini Plus. So for the newer Miyoo Mini Pluses, there is no V2. They're using V2 to reference the motherboard change. If you take a look here, the one on the right is the new motherboard, and they have this little rectangular piece, whereas it was more angled in the previous one. This one has RTC enabled. So the Miyoo Mini Plus's chipset has RTC, except that the pin for the RTC is connected to a trace that is only powered when the handheld is on, unfortunately. So there have been modifications to cut off that pin from the trace and then wire it to another trace that is always powered, and that will enable RTC. Now, I would not recommend doing that because it requires micro soldering, and you got to be pretty confident about your soldering skills to have that work. But these newer ones have RTC enabled. However, you have to turn that on if you're using Onion OS, and the very simple and easy way to do it is to create a file called .noTimeRestore, spelled exactly like that, with no extension, and it's empty, and you just put it in the config folder in the .temp update folder. And after that, you turn on Wi-Fi, turn on time sync, make sure the time is synced correctly, turn off the time sync option, turn off Wi-Fi, turn off the handheld, and then wait like 5 minutes, turn it back on and see if the time is still accurate, and that means you have RTC. So yeah, this guy was posted by Remox in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. It's called RTC on the Miyoo Mini Plus step-by-step guide, and it's pretty helpful if you want to get RTC working. Now, a lot of people have been trying to get the RTC Miyoo Mini Plus. A lot of manufacturers will say, yeah, we guarantee you get one, but a lot of people have gotten the older versions. So if you want one, it's not guaranteed, but you could potentially get one. And if you don't know, RTC stands for real-time clock, and it's just a clock that's always on as long as the battery is there. And the main reason people use it is for Pokemon games, because a lot of Pokemon games use a real-time clock. Okay, moving on, we have this post by RaidFinder_DE in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled NDS on MinUI. So if you're using MinUI on your Miyoo Mini and you wanted to get drastic working on it for Nintendo DS games, this guy made a package where you can just download it and then unzip it and copy it over and change a text file, and then you can get it working. I haven't tried this myself, but I'll test it out later. But yeah, also another thing too, when I recommend these user-created stuff, always make sure you practice safe habits, scan it for viruses, make sure it's not an executable. Just make sure you be extra cautious. If you want to be extra safe, create a VM just to download and test these things. You never know. Most of the time it's okay and it's legitimate, but there was one case where I was downloading some overlays and the zip file had a virus in it, so it does happen every once in a while. Alright, so I want to go over this post real quick. This was posted by FFX in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled My Very First Handheld. I spent way too much time making my own theme, Pokemon Summer, and it actually looks really good. I like it, but they didn't release it because, and I applaud them for this, this is actually this highly ethical behavior that I rarely see, especially amongst content creators, because they will just steal other people's content and not care. I gotta admit, sometimes I do that where like I pull something off of YouTube where I take a small clip and I forget to credit it. It's usually like effects or something. But when you're in the process of like grinding out a video, it just happens and you don't really think about it, but this person thought about it. They use a lot of assets from other people. They gave them full credit too. That's amazing. And the one thing that I want to mention here is this line right here. So starting in the quotation, Onion 4.3 is weird and has this permanent text drop shadow that I don't think we can remove, end quote. A lot of people who make themes have dealt with this text drop shadow and they're like, this makes it really hard to make it black text on white look really good. The good news is they updated that. So for Onion OS version 4.3.1, we see that MinUI disable text shadows was fixed by tgecko. So thank you tgecko. This was posted by GKFEYUKTF. I don't know what that stands for. It probably stands for something and I can't read it. In the Miyoo Mini subreddit, the post is titled Onion OS version 4.3.1. However, there was a problem, and this was posted by James WMW. The post starts, just updated, having trouble changing brightness with menu plus volume buttons in the main UI. That's the end of the quote there. And the good news is, they fixed that right away. So this was posted by Appropriate Sir 4411 in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled Onion OS 4.3.1-1, and we can see that fixed brightness and screenshot shortcuts in MinUI was fixed by Amy91, who's also one of the developers of Onion OS. I highly recommend using Onion OS if you have a Miyoo Mini or Miyoo Mini Plus. I would recommend checking it out. You can go to their GitHub. It's Onion UI and Onion, and I think it is one of the best operating systems I've used. Even if you don't use all the features, it's just so easy to add stuff to Onion OS. Okay, so if you're thinking the drop shadow thing might not be a big deal, but it is, and we can see because of this really nice looking theme. It was posted by a new funky mode in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled Theme Release, Kirby Theme Download Link Included. It looks really cute, and the creator of the theme and the OP said, huge shout out to the Onion team for version 4.3.0 and the removal of the drop shadow from the main UI. Y'all are the real MVPs. Obviously he meant version 4.3.1, but yeah, that Kirby theme looks so good. I actually downloaded it to check it out later, but I have this weird behavior where I really don't like changing the default theme, and I don't wear skins in games. I will just wear the default skin. There's only 2 skins I equipped, and that was in Apex Legends. For Octane, I had the Luffy skin. Come on, man, you gotta equip that. And I had the Naruto skin on Watson, and that was pretty much it. Everything else was unskinned most of the time. Yeah, out of all the games I played, I don't think I equipped skins at all. Okay, now moving on, we have this post by Sundowner Sport in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled Slim Bumper Cases. And yeah, this is pretty good. It's a slim bumper case for the Miyoo Mini and the Miyoo Mini Plus. If you have the original Miyoo Mini, I would recommend getting a bumper case, or the Miyoo Mini Plus as well, because those devices are notorious for breaking the screen if you drop it. There's no protection around the screen at all, so all the shot goes directly into the screen. I don't think you need it for the A30 because the A30 seems to have sufficient space around the screen. But yeah, if you have butterfingers, highly recommend a bumper case. And if you are especially butterfingery, get a lanyard as well because you don't want to break it. But that said, this one comes from Dill Design 3D. If you look at their Etsy store, it's roughly $18.35, I think, if you add shipping. I don't know if they charge tax as well. That's kind of expensive, but the guy does have a lot of their designs for free on one of the 3D printing websites. Also, I saw a really good design where there's a bumper case that slides into a cover, and that was really good. And they showed it. They knocked it off a table, and it was fine. So yeah, the bumper case is the most minimal way to provide protection for your device if you have butterfingers. Here's a really good design. This was posted by Dallas or T4 Dallas. Is it T4 Delis? I don't know. I have really hard difficulty reading names for some reason. Like even obvious ones. Like I'm like, oh, that's what the name was. Like a couple days later. But anyways, T4 Delis, I'm gonna say that. Posted in the Miyoo Mini subreddit, Game Boy Color grip, and flippable case for Miyoo Mini Plus. So this is a really nice case for the Miyoo Mini Plus. It makes it more like the Game Boy Color, and they have the printable files for free. It's super easy. You just slide it in there, no modifications. And I believe you can turn it, yeah, you can put it on the screen to protect it. So it has 2 features. And yeah, that's one of the main problems I have with this. And I saw a guy making their own custom case. I believe it was the Stormtrooper. And they made it exactly the same. But one thing I want to see is I want the screen to be better protected. So I want the case to be just a little bit larger around the screen. And also, I would like it to be a little bit longer and a little bit easier to hold. But one of the things I want is a change in the motherboard design where you have Bluetooth and you have OTG support and better Wi-Fi. So those are things I want to add if I can design my ideal or perfect Miyoo Mini Plus. Alright, here's a very neat creation. This was posted by Just Be Nuts. I like the name in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled Made a Magsafe Miyoo Kind of. And this mad lad made a wirelessly rechargeable Miyoo Mini. So we can take a look at the imager link here. And one thing I would say is, unless you know what you're doing, I would not recommend you do this, simply because these devices are finicky as is when it comes to charging, and for you to change it to a completely different form factor like wireless charging, I'm not entirely sure the average person can make the change and not have the device catch on fire, frankly speaking. But yeah, there is one flaw, and that is if you use the wireless charging method, the Miyoo won't know that you charged it. So even though you charge it to 100%, they give an example here. When it was at 61% and they charge it wirelessly, the battery indicator will stay at 61% until you go below 61%. So you won't know how much charge you have until you go below the last indicator or last measured capacity that you had. So that's kind of a bug there, but you know, you can do this, theoretically speaking. Alright, so here's another interesting one too. This one I haven't seen before for any other handheld, at least on Reddit. This was posted by Dan Fragoso in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled, "I'm working on an OBDII reader gauge for the Miyoo Mini Plus." I believe they meant OBD, which stands for Onboard Diagnostics. But yeah, this is amazing. They did something cool. It only reads RPM for now, and I don't know if they made any further progress, but they do have a GitHub and a YouTube video for a demo. And this guy linked, I believe, this article, Giorgio's blog, and it goes over how to make Homebrew for the Miyoo Mini Plus, and there's little code snippets. You can use it as a tutorial. I believe this is pretty cool because no one really goes over how to make Homebrew for these handhelds, at least not on these subreddits. There might be on YouTube probably. But yeah, this was written by Giorgio Arcamone, and this is their blog if you want to check them out. It was posted by Dan Fragoso. But yeah, this is neat. The reason why I brought this up is I think it's pretty cool that people are taking these devices meant for games and doing other things with them, because essentially it is a tiny Linux computer. That's what it is, or Android machine, but Android is also running on Linux, but it's a little bit different. Okay, this one is something that I've seen people ask for. This is a SNES CRT overlay made by One Player Insert Coin, and this guy does a fantastic job with making sure that the games are pixel accurate as well as color accurate as much as possible. So all the people who care about this, there's a small crowd making really good overlays, filters, shaders, and such, and they put a lot of effort into making sure it's very accurate. And yeah, if you take a look here, it looks fantastic if this is something you want. One of the main tests that you have to pass is playing Mega Man and making sure the health bars look even. If the scaling is off, then you might see the health bars look very uneven. That's one easy way to see if the pixels are accurate or not. But yeah, this guy has other guides that you might want to check out to make your games look pixel accurate, and make sure you follow the instructions perfectly to make sure that it looks like this. Moving on, I just want to show off this theme. It is the best theme that I've seen, personally speaking. My personal preference says this looks clean as heck, man. This was posted by Pedoardo in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. I've been working on a teenage engineering inspired theme, feedbacks. My feedback is it looks awesome, bro. I wanna get the theme. Look at that, it looks so clean. I don't know what teenage engineering is, but apparently it's an expensive brand. It's not truly teenage engineering unless you charge a minimum of $500 for it. Posted by BMN001. Yeah, what is that? Is it like a brand name? Is it like Supreme? Is it like Hype Gear? Anyways, that looks dope as heck. Now we're moving on to some user mods. So this was posted by No Silver Bird in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled Ride Eternal, Shiny, and Monochrome. So yeah, this looks clean. The white body with the black buttons, and even the lanyard is white with black accents. That looks pretty darn clean, man. We have this one too. This also looks clean. It's just simply replacing the buttons. It was posted by Colonia Paco in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled, Finally Replace the Buttons on my Miyoo Mini Plus. It's the gray body with the off-white, almost yellow buttons, and it makes it look really good. one colorway that I want to see more of that I don't really see of is not that gray color, but like a khaki color. I think that will look great. That button kind of goes well with a khaki color, I would also imagine. But that looks super clean as well. And then we have this post. This also looks pretty darn clean. This was posted by Mentos Brentos in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. The post is titled Orange and White, aka Color 09. It's clear buttons, and then 2 of the face buttons are clear, and then like translucent orange for the other ones. That looks really clean. It's simple, but it works. Also has a tech dweeb theme going on right there, which kind of matches. And finally, last but not least, we got this post from Potato Walrus, and it was posted in the SBC Gaming subreddit. I'm open sourcing my TrimUI Smart Pro 3D printable accessory designs. Now you may be wondering, for a Miyoo themed episode, why do I have this? Well, let me just say I've been playing this quite a bit, or testing it out at least for PSP, and it's fantastic. And one thing that I've seen posted by other users is that this grip is pretty darn good. It's available for free, thank you Potato Walrus, and it is kind of a risk when you release your designs for free because you will see companies in China take the design and then sell it on AliExpress for like a few dollars, and the actual people who designed it and have their own Etsy stores, they can't compete because it costs them a lot more to print it out. And not only that, you know, the reason why things may cost a lot is Etsy takes a large cut. You also have to factor in shipping. You also have to factor in taxes. Not just taxes the consumer pays, but you as a manufacturer have to pay on your earnings. So it gets pretty expensive to make something and sell something, whereas people in China have a lower cost and maybe less regulation, and they could charge you like $5 for something that might cost the actual designer $15 to ship to you. So it is kind of a risk, and that's why I appreciate it when anyone releases something open source, because there are a lot of people that can't afford to pay even like $15, $20 for an accessory, but they can afford to have like a local print shop print it out for them for way cheaper. I appreciate this, and this actually does help a lot of people out because I've seen multiple posts say it was a game changer for them. Okay, that's gonna be it, fellas. That was another long episode. Next week's episode, or maybe it might come 2 weeks later, but the next episode is gonna focus on Anbernic, specifically the RG35XX SP and the battery issues that people are talking about, but more importantly, the flaws that come with it as people have used it more and more. For the most part, it's still a very solid handheld, but there's some issues that you may want to take note of. They're very easy to fix, at least most of them are. And so I want to focus on that for next week's episode, as well as a smattering of other new news items, as well as new handhelds being announced. It never ends. But I just want to say thank you again so much for dropping by and watching. I really do appreciate it. I do read through every comment and try to respond if the comment elicits a response. And just another heads up, my work situation is changing, so I'm going to be a lot busier than I was, so I might not be able to release these episodes or guides as much or frequently as I want to. So that does make me a little bit sad, but I don't plan on stopping doing this. I really like handhelds, and I really like helping people out. I really like collaborating with people, and that collaborative effort, that collaborative feeling, that cooperation, I can't really find anywhere else, at least not in video games, that's for sure. And that comes from me as a support main. I'm a support main, pretty much was always support main because no one wanted to play support. So for Overwatch 1, I was support, Overwatch 2, support, Dota 2, I turned into support if I want to win. But before I would play jungle, I made my own Junglenaut build. It's a jungle Juggernaut build that only worked in the older version of Dota 2 where jungle was viable. You still had Poor Man Shield. You remember that, fellas? Quelling Blade. Anyways, it was a very funny build. You put most of your points into stats. You put one into Healing Ward, and then you would just go run around killing monsters. You would start very slow, but since you can scale up pretty quickly with just stats, that you would just run through the jungle. Anyways, I used to play a lot of Dota 2. Do I regret it? Maybe a little bit. For the 40XXH, I would recommend not buying it right away. Don't buy it from the manufacturer website. You have to pay around $14 in shipping at the very least, making the price roughly $80 to $85 if you don't have the $6 off pre-order bonus. And also another thing, the first batches always has issues, so just wait and make sure that any problems get ironed out, like the backlight bleed in the RG Cube, and just be a little bit patient. And you don't have to feel like you're gonna miss out. These companies will try to, instill a sense of FOMO on you and make you want to purchase it now. But these handhelds, they're always gonna be made, so don't worry about it, fellas. The newer ones are always gonna be better for the most part. Yeah, that was another long episode. I apologize for that. So the next episode should be a little bit long too, because there's a lot of SP news items that I have backlogged, and after that, it should be considerably shorter, and I could focus on a few items and then some interesting news items, and it'll be more digestible as an episode. But anyways, I really do enjoy making these, and thank you so much for dropping by and watching once again. I really do appreciate it. Now that I'm getting busier, I realize that, yeah, being able to do this was a privilege. It was great. I kind of took it for granted, and once you know that saying, when you only know the things that you took for granted once you lose them or something like that. But yeah, this was one of them, and yeah, it is what it is, but life must go on. Anyways, I'm not gonna stop making content. It's just gonna be coming out at a much slower pace. And one of the things that I might not be able to respond to as quickly is people leaving comments for help, because if I'm super busy, it might take me, even more time to respond back with a solution to your problem. Okay, before I keep rambling, thank you so much once again. I can't say it enough for dropping by and watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for all the kind comments. If you need help on anything, just let me know. I read all the comments, and it may take me a little while to respond back now, but I will try to help you out in the comment section. And then I will make a video and a written guide just for you if you need more help. Okay, my brain died there for a second, but as always, hope you guys are staying safe and sane out there, and catch you guys next time.